Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? Hello, and welcome back to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week we are looking into school buses. You see them on the road, you know the color without even thinking, but where did that come from? Why are they all yellow? Is that yellow? I try to answer these questions and more as we sit down and ask, how did that happen? In 1869, Massachusetts passed the first legislation in the U.S. allowing the use of public funds for transporting school children. By the early 20th century, most states had adopted such laws. This had become a necessity due to lackluster attendance by students as well as the consolidation of the public school system. One of the pioneers of the school bus idea was a company called Wayne Works from Indiana. They sold a wide range of products that included stoves and other things one would need on a farm. They also sold horse-drawn carriages and small wagons that they sold as kid hacks, which I think is interesting because it seems like kid hacks is a totally different thing now. I have read a lot about the founding of this company, and it reads like an episode of Dynasty. It's hard to tell who owned what when they sold it to who, but the important part is that this company is the first to sell anything that even resembled a school bus. Before that time, kids usually walked to school or rode farm wagons. Wayne Works continued expanding their business into Ohio in 1892 when the Ashtabula County School District commissioned them to make what they were calling a school car, which is basically what they were already calling kid hacks, but they chose to call it a different name. This was not the norm around America. At this time, many children were still getting to school any way they could. In 1927, a Ford dealership owner in Georgia by the name of A.L. Luce built the first actual school bus. But when I say actual school bus, I mean that it was he took a Ford car and then turned this into an actual bus, whereas the other ones they were kind of making their own kind of vehicles that were buses. He took an actual already like a Model T and just kind of lengthened it and turned it into a bus. He built this for the owner of a concrete company that needed to haul its men from the workplace to other facilities. For some reason, the owner of the concrete company ended up not buying the bus, so Luce sold it to a local school district. This was only a side project that Luce did while still running multiple Ford dealerships. He continued running the Ford dealerships until the Great Depression dropped the sales of vehicles. He sold the Ford dealerships and started his own company that would focus mainly on school buses. This company would come to be called the Bluebird Body Company, and they are still headquartered in Georgia, where Luce originally began the company. Wayne Works, of School Hacks fame, followed soon after the Bluebird Company, or A.L. Luce at the time, in 1930, making their own steel school buses complete with safety glass windows. Both Bluebird and Wayne Works would go on to make school buses for decades, with Bluebird still making buses to this day. Eventually, Wayne Works would file for bankruptcy in the 90s. The first school buses came in a variety of colors. It wasn't unusual to see a red, white, and blue bus, or even a green bus. The red, white, and blue buses were said to inspire patriotism among the students, although there was no real evidence to back that up. In 1939, Dr. Frank Sire, known as the father of school buses, organized a conference at a teachers' college in New York that was attended by transportation officials from all of the 48 states, in addition to reps from paint companies and school bus manufacturers. Before the conference, Dr. Sire had gone on a 10-state-long trip around America to gain a better understanding of how children were getting to school. While on this trip, Dr. Sire noticed some of the things already mentioned, like how the buses had no standard color or even make or model. The conference met for a week, and when they were done, a set of standards had been created that pertained to such things as school bus length, ceiling height, and of course, that color. The color was chosen because the black lettering on the backdrop was easier to see in the semi-darkness of early morning and late afternoon. The official name of the color is National School Bus Chrome, and its formula is on file with the National Bureau of Standards. This makes so much sense because it does feel like no matter where you go in America, the school buses are painted the same exact color, which is both comforting and unsettling at the same time. When discussing the color, Dr. Sire was quoted as saying, he and others from the conference put colored strips on the walls ranging from yellow to red. Finally, the attendees narrowed the colors down to 3 slightly different shades of yellow. The variation of shades was allowed because the color of paint cannot be mixed exactly. It's interesting to note that Dr. Sire, the father of school buses, always thought of the color to be more orange than yellow, and I have always thought the same thing. Currently, more than 26 million children ride a school bus every day. The color, the national school bus chrome, has become ingrained in society as much as apple pie and racism. And that is how school buses happen. And now it's time for the roundup. The roundup. The roundup. And we're gonna round it up. So we see that Wayne Works creates kit hacks around 1888. This continues until a Ford dealership owner by the name of A.L. Luce makes the first actual steel school bus, which was made for a concrete company that never paid for it. In 1939, Dr. Sire and a bunch of other people interested in school buses from all across the country get together and decide that, among other things, the official color of a school bus is going to be the National School Bus Chrome. That conference is what led to the nationalization of public school transportation. Things I didn't know before. Okay, so something that I did not know before was that until 1974, the state of Minnesota had its own color of yellow that it used for its school buses, and it called it Minnesota Gold and Orange. And so that's when, if you look, you'll see they say up until 1974, that's when, it wasn't until that time that all buses were the same color. That's kind of the state they were waiting on, because up until that time, Minnesota had its own gold and orange. I looked for pictures of it, I couldn't quite find any, but I just love the fact that they have their own color, and it took almost 40 years to give it up. The second one, and the last one that I learned, is that the public school bus operation basically in America is the largest mass transit system in the country, more than any city bus system or anything, any train system, anything like that. And that was just interesting because I never think about it, but you see it everywhere, and it's like one of the largest. It is the largest just machine, transit machine running in America, and I find that to be pretty interesting. All right, that's been another episode of How Did That Happen? I'm your host, Richard Dix. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.